Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Commercial Real Estate Secrets. I'm your host, Austin Hare. Our guest today is Nick Perry. Nick is CEO and founder of Want to Sell Now. It's the largest nationwide single-family residential wholesaling company in the U.S. He started in 2014, and in that short time, has grown it to consistently produce $300,000 to $500,000 a month, and all this while still running other passive businesses. So, Nick, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. How's it going, my man?
Dude, I'm honored, excited to be here with you guys right now. Really excited to see what I can provide in terms of value to shortcut a lot of the mistakes that I made throughout the process. I'm here where I am now, but didn't come out without a lot of hard work, a lot of failure along the way. So happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great. So, let's start at the beginning. Like, how old were you when you started having entrepreneurial tendencies or inclinations, and like, did you try anything from an early age that was a little bit different than maybe some other kids you were growing up with?
Yeah, I mean, 14 was probably really when I started. I moved, my mom moved to a different school district, so she sent me to like live with my dad. And it was a complete culture shock because my mom was, very middle upper class, and my parents were divorced. So when I went to go live with my dad, it was, complete opposite. He was paycheck to paycheck, one bedroom apartment. We really didn't have any money to do anything. There was times where we wouldn't have groceries, and he was really just struggling at the time. He's doing great now. I have a great relationship with all my parents, but I realized at an early age that nobody was coming to save me. I had to make my own money. So I did all the things that a punk kid would do at 14 years old. I was selling weed, working at the dollar store, really every day after work, after school or on the weekends, I was working in some capacity, whether legal or illegal. I was doing what I needed to do, and I realized, for me, it's you have to take that personal accountability and responsibility to get anywhere in life, and so that was ingrained at me at a very early age that it's my personal responsibility to become successful, and that's what prompted me to want to be a business owner because even in my early career working as like a personal trainer, that was my first career out of high school. Um, all of my wealthy clients were all business owners, and I was working my butt off, and I'm only making 60 grand a year. So I was like, there's something broken. I need to own my own business or do some sort of, really high ticket sales, or I'm not going to ever be able to make it financially the way I want to. And so that it's always been something that had been ingrained in me early on that I want to have the freedom, I want to have the money to be able to do what I want when I want without limitations of finances.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a case of rich mom, poor dad instead of the rich.
Exactly.
So did you
Yep.
get to see like who did you spend most of your time with? Did you actually were you living with your dad full time? Did you grow up with him?
Yeah, so I would see my dad on the weekends. My parents divorced when I was super young, so I would see my dad every weekend. And then, 14, when I was a freshman in high school, my mom moved, and in order to keep me in the same school district, playing sports and stuff like that, I moved to live with my dad. And so that was from 14 to 18. I was with him full time. So went from having nice, decent sized house to sleeping on the couch in a one bedroom apartment. And as tough as it was at that time, that's really what formed me, gave me the character to have that grit and entrepreneurial tenacity, which is required to be successful in any business.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. So when you are in high school and you're doing all these things, um, did you ever like, because there's a difference between a sole proprietor and a business owner. And so did you find yourself ever doing anything like there's a lot of obviously you had to hustle, right? Did you ever set up anything like maybe like setting up systems or hiring people or anything like that, or did that come later?
I mean, that came later. Like, I mean, when I was like, selling weed and stuff, I had, my friends that were helping me too, which I guess was like my first semblance of a basic company early on. But no, when, I got my real like entrepreneurial skills was I was actually selling franchises. So I was a personal trainer. One of my clients that I was really close with, he owned a large chain of frozen yogurt stores. He was the former CEO of Quiznos when Quiznos Subs was like in its height. And so I went to go work with him to go sell franchises, and working alongside of like a Fortune 500 CEO and getting to shadow and learn from them was really where I got a lot of my business building skills. And then after that, I worked at Indeed.com. So I was doing inside sales for Indeed, like enterprise sales, talking to large companies and just seeing the inner workings of how these large companies are actually structured. Gave me the acumen to be able to go out and create a successful business.
What was harder, selling franchises or selling personal fitness?
You're asking me fitness or franchises?
Yeah,
Franchises.
Franchise is harder. They say that a lot of the best sales guys come from fitness because it's one of the hardest things to sell, because essentially you're selling something that's not instantaneous. There's no instant gratification. It's not a physical product. It's a service. And you're essentially committing them to sign up for something that's expensive, that's going to cost them a lot of pain.
It is, yes.
It really builds. And I did the same thing. I mean, I didn't quite sell personal training, but we did, when I owned the gyms, there was a lot of selling the fitness and a lot of selling the services. And yeah, it is, I mean, it's a great learning experience, just getting those one-on-one consultations. It builds a lot of skills and a lot of that selling mindset. So obviously that translated into being able to sell franchises. I mean, do you think, like, is that one of the things that attracted the CEO to hiring you to essentially be a seller of the franchises? Or like, I'm curious that story, like how did that relationship to go from being a client to working for him?
Yeah, I mean, I would train him every morning, and just over time, building that trust and rapport. He saw that he saw my personality, saw my sales acumen, got along with him really well. I would tell him he'd ask me about my goals and my dreams and stuff like that, during our sessions. And that was kind of how that, conversation came up. And then, as his company started growing, he was like, well, dude, I mean, you're making 60 grand a year here. Why don't you come work with me? And so that's kind of where I, made the pivot. He knew that I was kind of burnt out on personal training, just from our conversations. He was one of my closest clients. So it was an easy decision for me. I was like, yeah, where do I sign up?
Nice. And so how did that go, and how long were you with them for?
So that lasted from 2011 till 2014. Okay. So in that time period, it was a frozen yogurt franchise. So in that time period, that was when that was the craze. Everybody was like refinancing and mortgaging their house to open up a frozen yogurt franchise. And then 2014, it just completely dropped off. It cooled off 100%, no pun intended. The whole market died out. And so they pivoted.
Selling the franchises and not buying them, huh?
Correct. So he pivoted, and they actually started like a pizza concept after that. But I was at the end of my lease in Northern Virginia, where I grew up. And I had to make a decision, do I want to keep doing this, or do I want to, try to do something on my own? And so through my time there, I got to travel all the cities in the United States, and Austin, Texas was one of them. And so I decided to move there. Out of all the cities I saw, I liked Austin the best. I live in Miami now, but I moved down to Austin, and that's where I started my real estate journey pretty much immediately when I hit the ground in Austin, because I didn't know what I wanted to do next. So I just started looking for opportunity.
So essentially, you just picked Austin because you liked it. You had no idea what you were going to go do when you got there. So what made you decide, hey, I'm going to try my hand at real estate?
Well, because I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to own my own company. I wanted, the financial aspect that comes along with being an entrepreneur. So I was looking at all kinds of different opportunities, on YouTube, looking at, stocks, Forex, a bunch of stupid MLMs, and real estate made the most sense. And conceptually, I think at a third grade level. So, for real estate wholesaling, for anybody that doesn't know, is if you have $100,000 property, you can negotiate it down to, get it under contract for 65,000, and then turn around and give it to a real estate investor and charge them 75,000, and you get to keep that 10,000 in between. So that's basically the way it works. So it's a very easy.
Out of pocket, when you do a transaction like that, in wholesaling, because I think wholesaling is kind of like one of those, you hear, it's like a buzzword that you hear a lot, but to get an actual definition, so sometimes evasive. So essentially you're negotiating, the value that you provide is that you're doing the due diligence, you're doing like the kind of the grunt work to find out who's willing to sell their house below market. And then once you find that person, you're immediately lining up an investor, making sure that you take the profit. Now, theoretically, you could just hold those houses and rehab them yourself or do whatever, but then you're in a different business, and that's flipping. And so obviously that has its own kind of set of, like, I know it takes a lot of capital, it takes a lot of time, you have to have construction crews and stuff like that. So wholesaling fits its own niche. So like, is that obviously you're providing the value of sourcing these houses that are selling for below market. You're taking a cut when you sell it to them, which is your payment for your time. But like, are you actually buying the house, like, from
No, you never have to take possession when you wholesale. So you
a
have,
little bit?
yeah, so when you wholesale, you don't have to take physical possession. You have one contract. We'll use the same example. You have a contract with the seller. So, the contract with the seller reads you're going to purchase the property for 65,000. And then you have another contract, which is called an assignment contract. And that's with the investor. So the investor signs another contract, a completely separate contract, stating they're going to purchase it for 75,000. So then you take both of those contracts and turn them into the title company. And when they process that transaction, you get an assignment fee of whatever the difference is.
Okay. And are you transparent with the numbers on the guys who are buying it? Like, do they know like kind of the margins, or are you just letting them know you're taking, some sort of cut?
Yeah, I mean, we'll usually just have them sign an assignment, and if they're happy with the numbers, there's no point in everybody counting their pockets. We will disclose it, but it's not something that really needs to come up in conversation. If they're happy purchasing at 75,000, they really don't need to know what our assignment fee is. As long as they're happy, the seller's happy, that's where we provide the value. We're helping the seller, we're helping the investor. And so what we make in between, usually sometimes it's on the HUD as a line item, but other times title companies don't even disclose it. So yeah, we don't have to disclose it if we don't want to.
Okay, so this was something you're in Austin. This pops up on YouTube, and you're like, oh, wholesaling, like I can do that. And so then what was next? You started, like, did you pay for a program, or did you just start calling people? Like, what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, back then they were teaching like do direct mail and stuff like that. And so I would go down to the courthouse, pull records during the day, handwrite letters, mail them out, go on appointments. And it was exhausting, tedious work. I wasn't an overnight success by any stretch of the imagination. It took me almost a year. It took me 11 months of like pretty much full time, 100% effort
Were you
to
living
get
off
my first
savings
deal.
at the time, or what?
No, I had like $7,000 in my name.
So
I was broke.
how did you float your bills and your rent and all that kind of stuff?
So I had to get a job. So I started working at Indeed. And I would work at Indeed from 9 to 5. And then I would work on my real estate business from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Wow.
And then every day on the weekends. But Indeed really catapulted me, because once I got that Indeed job, I went from like almost getting evicted from where I was living to making 250 grand a year, because I was a top performer at Indeed.
Were you doing sales for Indeed as well?
Correct.
Okay.
So inside sales, heavy on the phones, heavy quotas.
So I'm surprised that a sales job like that is only 9 to 5. That seems like it would be like all consuming.
No, I mean, you're calling businesses, so you're
Okay.
not really having to work at night or on the weekends.
Okay. All right. So you're working at Indeed 9 to 5. You're hustling 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. every day. How did you know what were the first steps to take?
Well, I had YouTube University, so I watched a ton of YouTube videos, and then I really didn't start getting traction until I got like my first mentor. So my first mentor was Sean Terry. He's out in Phoenix, Arizona. This guy has been in the business for a long time, since 2003. Very, very successful. And once I started getting that like one-on-one accountability and mentorship, that's really when my business started to take off. And quickly after that, within a year, I was able to quit my 9 to 5 job and go full time into real estate. And then from there, we scaled really quickly after I got out of my corporate job.
Okay. So you said it took you 11 months before you got your first sale in wholesaling?
Correct.
And that was, you were essentially just scouring the county appraiser's website or the court system?
Yeah, it was just archaic, like, yeah, really, because I was trying to do it on a shoestring budget at the time. And, it was, uh, now, now we do, 3 or 4 deals a day,
Wow.
every single day. But back then, it took me 11 months to just get ones because our marketing I had nothing dialed in. I didn't know what I didn't know. So it just took a long time for me to get going. But then once I got traction, I started to get the hang of everything. Things started, happening for us pretty quick.
Okay. So, yeah, and what can you, like, how much can you tell us about what it is that you guys do, like what you started doing differently that really led to this excess closing of the deals?
Yeah. So one reason that we're so successful is I do everything over the phones. So none of my employees have ever seen the inside of a house. They never, had to knock on a door, talk to a seller in person. Everything is negotiated 100% over the phones. And a lot of people are like that. But one reason why we have so much success is all of the marketing that we do is inbound leads. So digital marketing, online PPC. So you see a lot of companies, they're trying to generate leads through cold calling, texting, radio, various different methods. But our way of marketing, we have a super high conversion rate. So 1 out of every 12 leads that we talk to, we convert. As opposed to like cold calling or texting, it takes like 40 or 50 leads. So, we're working 4 times less hard than our competitor who's doing texting or cold calling or some other arbitrary.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems like the cold calling and the texting is just so saturated. Like I've got a couple of rental properties, and so I get texts and calls all the time, and I just can't imagine there's that many opportunities out there for
Right.
just because of the amount of people that have reached out to me. I mean, it's crazy. And so like you really got to hope that you time it right. Like you're hitting somebody up during a point of like extreme chaos or whatever that they got to sell real quickly, and you just have to be the first person. But yeah, it's interesting that you're not in that, because it seems to me on the outside looking in, it's hard to imagine being really successful with that model because of the pure saturation. So are you guys using essentially Google AdWords or Facebook ads or?
Yeah, I don't do any social media. I just do Google ads, Bing, and I've got really, really good at that. So that's really like the secret sauce on, how we're putting up the numbers that we are is I've just got PPC dialed in, and then I've got a phenomenal team of closers, and our systems, are pretty sharp as well. So we've been at it for a long time. We have a 3,000 square foot office in Austin. Our guys are there, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, banging the phones. It's like Wolf of Wall Street. It's a fun, cultural environment. We're constantly doing trainings, team outings, stuff like that. So
That's great.
having a team of rock stars and a great culture is a big part of it as well.
So you said you're closing like 3 or 4 deals a day right now.
Correct.
Okay. And how big is your team? How many people does it take to pull off an operation like that?
So I have 9 guys. I used to have like 21 or 22 people, but I was able to restructure my organization, trim a lot of the fat to where now I only have 9, and there's 10 including myself, but I'm not even that active in my business. So I have 9 full-time guys that run the entire operation.
Okay. And who is doing have you taught somebody how to do the ads, the PCP, pay per click stuff, or I guess PPC, or are you still doing that part of it?
That's the only thing that I still do in my real estate business.
Okay.
Just because I know my campaign so intimately, and every time I've tried to farm it out, it's been a disaster. I've tried, a dozen different agencies, and they've always end up messing it up to the point that I just have to take it.
I guess you really got to know Google ads, and you got to know your industry, right?
Correct. And, with Google ads, you have to make a lot of counterintuitive decisions on the fly. And it's just something that it doesn't take that much of my time, and it's too much. It would be irresponsible of me to just try to farm it out to somebody.
Yeah. So, is this like, do you work with other people? Like, do you teach this skill, or do you have a course or something like that that you offer?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not for everybody. It's only for people that are already in the industry. You've already got to be doing deals and stuff like that. But it's called the 7-figure cartel. So it's a mastermind that we basically lay out our entire blueprint of everything we do. So you can go through all of our videos. Literally breaks down our entire business from start to finish. And then we also provide you literally every single document we use within our company. And every other week we're hopping on Zoom just like we are now, and I'm figuring out, hey, where are you in the business? What challenges, what roadblocks do you have right now, or can you anticipate in the future? And we're making sure that you're getting ahead of everything, so you're not getting stuck and you're getting to where you want to be. So my one thing that I'm really good at is getting people that are doing a handful of deals a month to up to doing 20, 30, 40 deals a month.
Mm.
I'm really good at that. Like, if you already know how to do the business, you have a success mindset, getting you unstuck from your current position to getting 7 figures plus is not really hard for me. So that's why I created it. I enjoy it. I love working with other entrepreneurs and helping them. That's more rewarding than even the real estate business itself.
Are you like, your team, are they nationwide?
Yes. So we're headquartered in Austin, Texas. I live in Miami, Florida. So I'm in Miami Beach.
But
Um,
deals, like, are you guys doing deals nationwide, or do you
correct. Yeah. So we do coast to coast. We do the entire nation. So when I market literally just the United States. I don't, pick certain pockets or anything like that. Wherever the lead comes in is where we're gonna work it.
Okay. And is there a certain niche, or is it just kind of based on price of the homes, or what do you focus on?
So what we're looking for is, we're comping property just like you would in any city, but there's certain things you have to know about, the cities themselves. Like, you're going to have, some places where, the real estate market is super hot and you can afford to contract that property for 75% of retail value. And then you're going to have some areas that there's not a lot of demand and you better get that thing at 40 cents on the dollar. So we've just, over time learned how to be able to evaluate properties nationwide and contract them at the right price. And then we can turn around and go, wholesale them, fix and flip them. We do rentals as well, and be able to monetize on the right exit strategy.
Okay. So like, what happens if somebody comes in and wants to work with you and they're kind of targeting like the same audience, like coast to coast, trying to find wholesale deals?
I mean, I have 90 plus students right now who are all doing the same thing, and I'm still crushing it, and so are they. So, I don't really worry about that. I mean, I've got an abundance mindset. So my thought is, you help enough people get what they want, and you end up getting what you want in return, and that's been the case for me. So I haven't seen, like, me running into students on deals. I haven't had any issues with rising cost per lead. I've been able, everybody's been killing it and crushing it. So we're gonna keep
Lead
it
costs
going.
have stayed low, or not? I
What's
guess
that?
I guess I don't really know if they're low or high, but lead costs have stayed the same.
Yeah, lead costs are the same, and yeah, actually, my campaigns now are working better than they ever have. So
What's kind of like the target range that you go for a lead? Like, what do you hope to keep them between, the cost wise?
between $25 to $35 a lead.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's super interesting. I think it's great that you guys have a model where you don't have to physically go in. Obviously, you're going to save a lot of time that way. And so I guess you're just trying to figure out really like the correct phrases that people are thinking about and they're typing into when they want to like sell their home or sell an excess property or something like that. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, and I mean, we do a lot of other kind of campaign types, and that's search. So we do search campaigns where you're bidding on the keywords and the phrases that people are looking. Google also owns YouTube, so we do a ton of YouTube advertising. We do a ton of banner ads. So there's a lot of different ways you can, you advertise on AdWords and on Bing outside of just bidding on keywords. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind when people hear AdWords or Bing, but you have multiple different campaign types and ways you can get in front of people.
Okay. And the banners and that sort of thing is working well as well?
Yeah, the banner ads, YouTube, all that stuff works great. You just got to know what you're doing, or you'll just waste a bunch of money on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously you've got the main, or I don't know if it's your main, but it sounds like it's your first business of doing the wholesale deals for yourself. And then you started coaching as well. Is that kind of your second business that you started?
No, my second business I started a trucking company. So
Ah,
18 wheelers. So I have some 18 wheelers that over the road trucks that I lease out. That's a smaller business. That was the second business I started. Then I started an e-commerce company.
with the
So
trucking business, you buy the trucks and you lease them to truck drivers. Is that how it works?
no, I lease them to a company that has government contract.
Okay.
So they have a government contract, but they just need the equipment. And so they handle all the logistics of the hiring and the firing of the drivers, the maintenance, all the, you know, fuel, everything.
So I
And
thought one of the benefits of leasing though was that they weren't responsible for maintenance, but they do take care of the maintenance.
correct. I have a warranty on the truck. So if it's something that's not covered under warranty, then they usually cover it. But if not, they're going to tap my warranty, but that's fine.
Okay.
So yeah, the trucks are good. That's not really a huge passion of mine, but it brings me enough money to where I'll keep it going.
You're not positive about leasing semi trucks?
No, not really. Um, so that's good. And then I have a bunch of e-commerce stores as well. And then oil and gas, do oil and gas, mobile home parks. So that's really where, I want to continue to put more of my time and energy into is the coaching and then the commercial real estate.
Okay. All right. And so when you say commercial real estate, that's going to be something that you're branching outside of just doing the residential wholesaling?
Correct. Yeah. So, we work with existing natural gas and oil wells. So we'll go in and basically fix wells that are dried up or, used to be in production and get them producing again. We're also drilling, new wells in addition to that. So that's a form of commercial real estate. Oil and gas is a form of commercial real estate in itself. And then mobile home parks, all the baby boomers own the parks right now, and really a lot of them don't have a succession plan in terms of passing them on to kids, so they're offloading parks, and that's something
Are
that
you targeting that the same way that you're targeting the wholesaling? Like you're just using direct pay per PPC advertising?
it doesn't work as well with PPC because there's not a lot of people looking to sell trailer parks like that.
Yeah.
So you have to go more of a more old school approach with these mobile home park owners, and cold calling still works phenomenal for those. Direct mail, those older school methods of reaching out for work well on mobile home parks.
Is that something that's newer for you? Or have you been doing that for a while?
So we've been doing it for a few months now. We've already got a couple mobile home parks. We have one that's closed, and then we have another one that is under contract right now. So that's starting to pick up to where we just dedicated somebody full time to doing that. Yep. So it's going to
And is that
be a
regional
big
for you
part of
guys
our portfolio.
or nationwide as well?
Yeah. Anything in the South, I don't like because I'm holding these properties and putting management in place and stuff like that. So I like to keep it in like landlord friendly states. I try to stay out of the New Yorks, the Illinois, the Californias,
Yeah.
places like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Where they could have free rent for unlimited amounts of time, it seems like these days.
Right. But anywhere else, I'm happy to to look at them. If you guys got any mobile home deals, send them over my way. I'm the buyer for it, so if it looks like a deal, I'll close on it.
Okay. And then what are you looking for in the mobile home deals? Are you trying to buy them at a certain cap rate? Or do you look for like a certain amount of occupancy, like or vacancy percentage, or like ones that have under market rents, or like how do you determine what makes good a fit for you guys?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the rental income as it stands right now. So if you got a park that's bringing in $10,000 a month in gross rental income, I'll usually pay It depends on the area, between 50 to 60%. It's kind of my formula. So if it's bringing in 10 grand a month, I'll offer anywhere between 500 to $600,000 on it, depending on the condition, the age of the units, where it is. I'll sometimes even go up to 70%, up to 700K if it's in a great phenomenal area, newer trailers in there. So I look at those factors, and then I'm also looking for upside. As an investor, is there an ability to add more units in the park? Is there the ability to do improvements and increase rent? So I want to force appreciation and be able to go back to the bank and refinance, and that's my goal. And then keep these things long term, and sell them off. Once I have a bunch of them, I'll probably go sell them off to a fund,
a REIT or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then I know you mentioned a little bit about the oil and gas. So what's the commercial real estate play in that? Like, how'd you get into that? And then can you explain a little bit more about those things?
Well, I've been in Texas for the last 7 years. So, when you're hanging out in Texas around a bunch of oil field guys all the time, talking business, you start to, learn a little bit about it. And so a lot of my friends were in the oil and gas industry, and then, learning from them and just connecting myself with the right people. My first opportunity came up. I invested $100,000 as, just a partner in a fund, to where, we went into a field of 86, natural gas wells that were basically shut in. And then we went in, put perf guns in there to shoot existing fractures and, extract, more hydrocarbons out. So that was the first project. Like I said, now we're doing a well where we're going in and sidetracking into this large natural gas pocket, super high pressure, super high risk. Like, this is much higher risk stuff than, buying a, apartment complex or a doctor's office. But the upside is obviously, super high, right? You're looking at, some of these projects, paying back, 50, some up to 100% a month, right? So, I've got enough passive income coming from that, I could shut my wholesaling business down if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. So I'm going to keep working on my commercial holdings. The reason I like natural gas and oil is because they have a lot of the same tax advantages as commercial real estate. You can write them off in the same way because it's real property, but you're not dealing with tenants, and you're not dealing with a lot of the headaches that come along with commercial property. It's basically the natural gas and oil comes out of the ground, it goes into a meter, and you get paid for the life of that well.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because we have a podcast. It talks about different stages of investing. And it seems like a lot of people start out with real estate, and then in particular, residential real estate and single family real estate. And the reasons are pretty obvious, because like it's very like client facing or customer facing, right? Like everybody sees houses, and so that starts to get your wheels turning. But then it's also very accessible. Like the banks are very open to lending to it. The terms are like very favorable, so you can get, I think it's like 4.5% or 5.5% down, and then you can finance the rest. So, and then it really doesn't cost a lot of money out of pocket. And then of course, like you need a place to live, or if you don't need a place to live, it's very easy to rent out if you're going to do it as a holding that way. But it's like the second step seems to be like after the single family, maybe you do several of those or whatever, but step two is usually like a multifamily deal, and that could be like a duplex or a quadplex. And then those things, you kind of get a couple under your belt to manage those that way. Because again, like lending on residential is still a little bit easier. And then it's like, lastly, a lot of times when you come into commercial real estate. And the reason is because like it just takes a lot of capital. I mean, when these buildings are much higher prices, and you need 25% down. And so if you really want to scale this, you just got to have access to a lot of capital, and not everybody can get started that way. Of course, there's different ways to do it with partners, and like who you bring in, like different capital partners versus like the operating partners and stuff like that. But it's not always the case, but it does kind of seem to be like the trend, goes in those three stages. And so it's interesting that even for you, it's like you still have your residential component, but you started with residential, and then you've moved into now commercial. And a lot of the same things, like dealing with residential tenants is just a lot of work.
Yeah, dude, nobody's become a billionaire on single family homes.
Yeah, so
You know
it's
what I'm
like
saying? Right. You might get BlackRock or somebody like that may have $1 billion in single family holdings, but those are big funds. But no, like I don't think there's a single person that's made $1 billion on single family. It's all been on commercial.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's kind of what we recommend too. Is like start with a single family residential, like at least your own house, just kind of get the feel for it, and then if you own a business, maybe the next step is buying the real estate for your business. But again, like that's situational because a lot of times it just doesn't make sense to buy the real estate for your business. Like if you're the tenant and your EBITDA is not great, then the value of your building is going to be that high. So your cash flow might be better off buying the real estate for a business that's much more successful, that has really great EBITDA, and then you're making more money on that, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can skin it. But is that do you kind of coach in a similar way? You start out with, the single family residential, or are these
yeah,
all different buckets that you're working in?
no, I mean that's the base, right? Like I wouldn't be involved in any of these other opportunities if it wasn't for wholesaling and fix and flipping property. I wouldn't have the funds to do it. I would probably, I don't know what I would be doing at this point. But what happens is, once you get really good at wholesaling, fix and flip, and the single family aspect of it, you get to a point where you just got so much money piling up in your account that it's like, well, I got to do something with this money. So what am I going to do? I was like, oh, I'll buy some trucks. I'll buy, some e-commerce stores. Oh, let me buy some, mobile home parks. Let me throw some more money at some, oil and gas wells. So that's kind of how it goes. But the single family is the base, right? It's very transactional. You're not going to get wealthy fixing and flip. You can get rich, but you're not going to get wealthy um, doing fix and flip or wholesaling. But if you need capital, that is a great place to start because it will generate cash really quickly. So that way you can begin to get into these larger projects.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I'm a big fan of Masterminds. When I had the gym, I paid for a program. It was called Gym Launch, and it was a guy who he had like 5 or 6 gyms, and he successfully learned how to really. It was Facebook ads that really took off, but it was also selling was a big part of it. And so, we paid for his services, and he had a team of guys, and they had the learning modules, and it really helped scale my business. And it was the reason I was able to sell them so successfully. So I think it is absolutely really can be really beneficial. The only difference that I see between what you're doing and what he's doing is he had pretty much gone completely out of the gym business. So like he had sold his gyms, he'd offloaded, and he was just strictly in the coaching business of helping people. So my question to you would be, if you're like you said, you're making all this money, you got to figure out what to do with it. Why not just double down on what you're doing there? And you know what I mean? Instead of teaching other people how to do it, like what's your long-term plan and like what's the benefit there?
So with the single family wholesaling, I had it, like I said earlier in the podcast, like I had like over 20 people in my organization, but there's just a lot of headaches that come along with scaling a wholesaling operation. Like in order to compensate for, hiring on more sales reps, I need to add more marketing, which equates to more payroll. You can look at any of these wholesaling and flipping operations. The larger the team, it almost equates perfectly. Like the larger the team, the smaller the net at the end of the day. So my thing is, I would rather, make 300 grand a month at, 35-40% profit margin than $1 million a month at a, 10% profit margin, right? So I'm focused on bottom line. I don't care about top line. And the fix and flipping and wholesaling is very manually intensive as well, right? So there's a lot that goes into it. I don't have any desire to try to scale it past like where I am now. I would rather take that money and put it into stuff that's going to be able to build me long-term generational wealth.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And you mentioned earlier you got some e-commerce business as well right now. What are you working on right now in that area?
So I own a couple of Amazon, like fulfillment by Amazon stores where, we buy products and put them in the Amazon warehouse. So, You have a couple stores doing that, and that is really good. I have a Walmart store as well, so I have three fairly large e-commerce stores, and those bring me in really passive income. I have teams that manage them, so I make net $25,000-$30,000 a month between all my e-commerce stores, which is nice after paying for products and everything. That's my take home. So that's nice. And then my goal on that is just to continue to build those stores, because the fulfillment by Amazon stores is actually a sellable business. So there's companies that will buy these FBA stores for revenue multipliers. So I'm going to continue to grow them for the next couple of years, and then I'll cash out of them for probably 15 to 20x EBITDA, and then I'll take that money and put it right back into commercial real estate.
At 20 multiples, those companies?
Yes. So as long as it's FBA, they're not going to do it. You see a lot of the drop shipping stores out there. That's not a sellable business. But if you're actually buying the physical product, you have your own store, you have your own trademarks and stuff like that for your store, it's a sellable business.
So does that mean that when you're in an Amazon fulfillment center, you are physically ordering the product that people are purchasing and delivering it from a warehouse somewhere close to a major metropolitan area?
Exactly. So I have, I think I have like the largest roller skate company, like in the United States. So that for e-commerce, it's none of my own doing. But I have a phenomenal team that manages it all, and they've done a great job at growing it. So we sell like a ton of roller skates in one of my stores, and then just various like outdoor goods. And then the Walmart store, that's a cash cow as well, but it's not a sellable business. The Walmart is a drop shipping, so I can never sell my Walmart store.
Because the leads are coming in through Walmart. You're just doing the fulfillment, is that why?
Yes. And it's drop shipping. So like, we'll find a hammer on homedepot.com for $9.99 and sell it on walmart.com for $14.99. And we make the difference in between. And they do that amongst thousands and thousands of products. And that's how we make money. But technically that it's against like the terms of service that Walmart has and that Amazon has. You're not supposed to be doing that drop shipping stuff. So it's great right now if you have a store, ride it till the wheels fall off. But the way to go is to actually buy the physical product, send it into the Amazon warehouse, and do it like a legitimate business.
So when you're buying it, so like as an example, roller skates, would you buy a massive amount, let's say from China for wholesale, super cheap, or I guess cheaper than wholesale, because technically you're selling it retail, so you'd buy a wholesale, like I'm throwing out a random scenario, just correct me after if I'm wrong, but you buy like a bunch of wholesale roller skates from China, they show up at your warehouse, and then you send those off to different Amazon fulfillment centers, and then you're selling them on the Amazon platform, but Amazon is storing those for you at different places based on where you predict people are going to buy from, and then they'll physically send them out.
Exactly. So that it's fulfillment by Amazon, which means Amazon is actually fulfilling it. And once you get them into the warehouses like that, you have a much you have an advantage too, right? You have the ability, so you can get Prime. There's next day shipping, stuff like that, that you're not going to get if you're drop shipping. So that's the most advantageous way of going about Amazon, in my opinion. Can you make more money out the gate if you're drop shipping? Yes. But will you probably get your Amazon account shut down at some point and have nothing to show for it? Probably. So
do you have to, you have a warehouse that accepts shipments in large quantities from China?
And so we have a warehouse. Yeah, we have a warehouse in Arizona and also in Garland, Texas.
Okay.
So we have 2 warehouses.
So you're accepting the large shipments and then you're dispersing it to different Amazon fulfillment centers?
Exactly.
That's like the main, I don't know if it's the main part, but that's one of the probably most labor intensive parts for you guys.
Correct. Yeah. And you're dealing with customs and it's a whole operation. It's a whole operation.
Was this through the 7-figure mastermind that you got turned on to this, or how did you find out about this kind of stuff?
No, I'm like you, man. I go to a ton of masterminds. And so I'm always, just trying to learn and, take in knowledge from people that, have a life resume. And so through, just, my quench for, knowledge, I just got plugged into, people that were already doing this. And then I did my own due diligence and really, went down the rabbit hole on how it worked and what I needed to do, and put myself in the right rooms to get set up. So I have company that handles it all. It's fairly passive for me. I mean, they use the company checking account and have the credit cards and stuff like that, but I'm not getting in and ordering products or calling people in China to negotiate prices of roller skates or anything like that.
Now, but was it like that at the beginning, or when you were setting this up, did it take a lot of time to create these procedures?
So I partnered with a company that already had it going, and so I give them a percentage of the gross revenue, or excuse me, the net revenue. I give them a percentage of the net revenue, and so they do everything. So I give them 35% of the net revenue. I keep 65% of it. They do all the work. I provide all the money.
Okay, so they essentially needed capital to scale. You provided the capital, and you keep 35% as a result.
I keep 65%.
I mean 65%, and they take 35%. Yeah. And but you're responsible for the expenses as well.
Yeah, I have to take all the financial risk.
Okay. What percentage of like revenue does it end up being take home for you, like the end of the month?
So we're at 42% right now for June. It's about to be the end of June. So the month before that was like 38%. That's another thing, is the margins are much higher.
So that if you're keeping 65% and then 38% is profit, so it's it's a pretty high margin business.
Correct. Yeah, and we're still, I've only been doing it for a year and a half, and the stores are still growing month over month. So as they continue to grow, it's it pays for the lifestyle, pays for some of the other investments. And really, my goal at the end of the day is not to become some e-commerce mogul. I'm a real estate guy at heart. So my goal is in the next like 5 years to be completely retired on like trophy property, like triple net leases. So I have 30-40 million dollars invested into triple net leases and great areas, super safe, low cap stuff, bringing me in $1 million to $1.5 million a year net.
Yeah, we like triple net leases too in commercial real estate for the same reason. Because I've got a couple Airbnbs, the short-term rentals, and that's like the most work for property managers and stuff like that. And when you have like a triple net lease, where the people, the tenants, their business is on the line, and so they're mostly fixing everything, right? Of course, you have things that come up like roof and AC and stuff like that, but for the most part, like little stuff that happens just everywhere. I mean, toilets and lights and electric, like that just happens in any building you go. You can't avoid it, but they're taking care of that because their business is on the line, and that's how the leases are negotiated. And so, it's much more passive. Of course, like the downside is it's much more capital intensive to get in, but once you own them, they're really handling most of the stuff. And it's actually much less work for much higher income than what you would get with a single family, which is why there kind of seems to be that hierarchy that we coach, and it sounds like you coach as well.
Yeah, everything that we've talked about on this podcast up to this point is just a means to an end to be able to retire on triple net leases.
Yeah. So, for people who are listening, they want to get started, like what's a good first step that you recommend? And if they want to reach out to you to get some information, how do they do that?
Yeah, Instagram is probably the best way. So you can just follow me on there, Nick Perry, REI. You can follow me there. And then, for people that are like getting started, get your core business in your base, right? Like mine is the real estate wholesaling. I don't care what your core business is, but you need a core business that's going to be able to generate cash. So then you can start looking at these other opportunities, get into whatever space you want to be, whether it be commercial real estate, Airbnb like Austin's doing, e-commerce, oil and gas. The opportunities are endless once you've established that core business. So for me, real estate wholesaling was kind of my ticket to be able to now have passive investments and be where I am. but get that core business going. Get some money invested into some other areas that are going to be assets. Don't spend your money on liabilities. Just simple stuff, man.
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, yeah, Nick, thanks very much for your time. Thanks for your insight. I'll leave those in the show notes as well so that people can connect with you on Instagram if they like to.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. I appreciate you, man.